Warhammer short stories, they're really hit or miss, but that's not like, oh, this omnibus is good, this omnibus is bad. It's just like when you're reading it, you're just like, wow, this short story really sucks, or wow, this short story is fantastic. There was only one. Okay, there's only two omnibuses that I wasn't thrilled about. Short story omnibuses. The one that really sucked was a bunch of fan fiction. It was like this. It was just a bunch of drabble. It was just absolute drabble, drabble, dribble, dribble, drabble. So annoying. Okay. And so the short story one was bad. There's like a mediocre one. It takes place at the beginning of the Horus Heresy. It has a lot to do with Argyle Tal. It has a lot to do with like the Ultramarines being friends with the Word Bearers and then having to fight them. It wasn't awful. It just wasn't very memorable. This one though, very memorable, very memorable. So you get to see Typhus. You get to see Typhus a lot, and he shows up in one world and he's just a badass. He just goes and kills everyone. But you see him induce this like dancing plague. Like if people hear the music, they start dancing until they fall apart. That's just what they do. It reminds me of this like mass hysteria thing that happened in the Middle Ages. I'm sure this is what it was based off of, or maybe the Dark Ages, where people would just spontaneously become dance until they died. They just went out there. They got a fever and all this shit. So that is definitely based off of this. Pretty cool Typhus moments, honestly. Typhus is a champion of Nurgle, and for whatever reason, the Death Guard up until this point didn't get a whole bunch of love from the lore. Well, that's kind of cool because you get to kind of imagine for yourself what they are like. And Blood Gorgons, that's a book I'm gonna have to read before I put it out there. The Blood Gorgons is the first great chaos novel from a chaos perspective. I mean, the one with Han Sao is pretty good. Storm of Iron, that one's pretty good. But like, this one is just like, okay, that one, Storm of Iron is about Iron Warriors. Blood Gorgons is just about Chaos Space Marines. Just about Chaos Space Marines. There's a short story in here where there's like, I want to say there's Emperor's Children. There's a couple different factions. And the Plague Marines are more or less like made to be paladins in a way. They're kind of like, they're not bastards. I mean, they're really gross. They're really gross, but that's their major underpinning theme. But the reason you want to read this one, okay, the reason you want to read this one is there's a short story in there, and it's so concise, and it delivers the point. It doesn't beat around the bush. There's just enough pages and words to make it work the way it does. There's an Iron Warrior, right? And I mean, this guy is a veteran of the Long War. He participated in the Siege of Terra, and he realizes that his days are numbered. He knows that it's not going to end out well for him. He just sees it. He just sees it coming, and so there's so much introspection here. Instead of him just being some crazy despot that doesn't think that he can ever be deposed, he sees him being deposed coming. So he invites a court of varying varying Space Marine, Chaos Space Marine, not chapters but legions to his planet. It's like on a ship or something. He's like on like a ship that's been grounded or something like that. So it's got a cool setting to it. All right, it's a blasted planet, and he's the only thing there. I think There's a Star Trek movie that did that pretty well too. Can't really remember it. The guy from A Clockwork Orange is there. Matthew McDowell, he's there. And so they get there, and he's like, like what do you do? What have you done for the Long War? What have you done? What have each of you done for the Long War? And they really have nothing to show for it. The Chaos Space Marines he invites to his world are all just fucking bullies. They use their superhuman Astartes strength to just impose their will on people and to mess with them. And this is problematic because they're not fighting for an end goal here. They're just squabbling. They're just petty. They're just bullying people. And so this book is great. And I have 2 copies of all the best books. I'm going to be whipping out double copies of a few of them. This book is great because it shows the difference between the veterans of the Long War and just the Chaos Space Marine bastards that are just running amok. I wasn't aware of this dichotomy. I seriously thought that everyone more or less wanted to oppose the Emperor. And I mean, they do, but it's a lot less than more. They're not actively working towards the end goal here. They're just Chaos Space Marines. They're just freaks. They're awful. And so you've got, some of them that are trying to constantly undermine the Imperium. I mean, you got others that are just like, I'm a Chaos Space Marine. I do what I want. There was a great moment in this book. The Emperor's children's slaves. One of them was blind and one of them was deaf, so they both had to work together to translate for their master. And there was a lava flow or some sort of evil energy. Once again, about a decade ago since I read this, but it stuck with me. They just embraced each other. It was brother and sister twins, and they just welcomed oblivion rather than be the slave of an emperor's children. Chaos Space Marine, who wasn't a noise marine, but he wasn't a noise marine. What these short story books give you is a deafening low and a high crescendo, time and time again. And I for the most part, I really recommend reading them. Three times out of 5, you're gonna be like, "Wow, this sucks. Wow, this sucks. How did this get put into a book?" But for those 2 out of 5, I'm telling you, you are in for something incredible.